So basically Confucius says, what is done is in the past, so we can just let it go. And the reason why this is so important is because, well, you'll see. So 2.21, Duke I asked Zai Wo about the altar of the soil. We'll get to that later. Zai Wo replied, the clans of the Xia sovereigns used the pine tree, the Shang people used the cypress tree, and the Zhou people used the chestnut tree, or li. That'll be important. It is said that they wanted to instill fear, and also li, in the people. Having been informed of this, the master remarked, one does not try to explain what is over and done with. One does not try to criticize what is already gone, and one does not try to censure that which is already past. Alright, so who are these people that are involved? So basically, three main people. Number one, of course, Confucius. And then Duke I is the ruler of the state of Lu, which is, like we've talked about before, just really collapsing. It's not looking great. And Zai Wo is a disciple of Confucius, and he is really smart, really clever, but he's also really controversial because he really likes to cut corners, and he says something here that Confucius really did not like. And so what did he say? So he was asked about the altar of the soil. So the altar of the soil was this really sacred symbol of the state's power, and also it symbolized the connection between the land and the people. It's also made out of wood, so the connection to the type of wood that it is made with is really, it has a very profound sacred importance. And Zai Wo just says the Xia dynasty, the first dynasty of China, used pine wood, and then the Shang, which is the second, used cypress, and the Zhou used the chestnut tree. And here's where it gets interesting. So you might have noticed that the word for chestnut, as I have said, li, and the word for to make the people tremble with fear is also li. And so this is kind of like a wordplay. It's like a pun that Zai Wo says, but it's just a really, really simple political criticism of the Zhou dynasty. And like we've said before, Confucius really, really respected and really appreciated the founders of the Zhou dynasty, but Zai Wo literally says, oh, they chose this kind of wood in order, because they governed by fear, which really just contradicts the whole entire Confucian ideal of ruling by virtue and good example and benevolence, which is ultimately what will naturally kind of encourage the people to be loyal to this ruler because of his natural, genuine virtue, you know? And so Confucius was really annoyed with Zai Wo because he didn't really consider at all the many possibilities, other possibilities that the Zhou dynasty, that the founders might have used the chestnut tree. And it could have been, it was just very available locally, which is the practical side. Or maybe even the deeper, more profound meanings. Maybe it stands for something. And so Confucius thinks that Zai Wo didn't really consider history, the historical context of it, seriously. And he also didn't really consider what significance his words could have on this really poor ruler of Lu. And so Duke Ai wasn't really a strong ruler to start with. He was just really weak and indecisive, and here he is trying to rule a really, crumbling society. And so you can probably tell how desperate Duke Ai is for an answer, but Daiwo just says, oh, criticism. And so basically what Daiwo says, so if you can't rule by virtue, then you gotta rule by fear. And that is not, Confucius doesn't think that is right. So we're moving on to the second part. And so Confucius, rather than just directly saying, Daiwo, you're wrong, he instead says, first part, one does not try to explain what is over and done with. So basically Confucius is just saying, don't dwell or criticize on things that have already passed, because it's really unproductive and it's just useless, basically. And it's also very disrespectful. So the past should be understood in its historical context, not just judged by the standards of modern times, or just whatever's the norm right now, because that wasn't the case when, it was in the past. And then the second part, one does not try to criticize what is already gone. So basically, don't criticize or offer advice on things or matters that are already finished, because it is literally pointless. And you can't really offer advice after it's over. So this is kind of for the advisors or ministers. And in this case, it is for Daiwo, who poses as the advisor for Duke Ai, because he is being asked a question, but he's not really doing a very good job at it, because yes, remonstrance is a very important duty for the minister, for the advisor, but it should be done in a timely fashion, because you can't go around or criticizing or offering advice on things that are already well in the distant past. Because, okay, so for example, the American Revolution. So you just would someday randomly say to someone, oh, the Americans did this wrong, they should have done this, they should have done that. But it's already so long ago. And same for the Zhou dynasty. This altar to the soil was, the wood was decided when the Zhou dynasty was created. So that was just well in the distant past. And so you can't really do anything about it anymore. And plus, it's just really just, you're undermining the foundations of tradition without even offering a viable solution. And then the most important line, one does not try to censure that which is already past. So this is literally directed, very squarely directed at Daiwo. So this is a very, very cool kind of thing that Confucius is doing. So he's literally practicing what he's preaching, like the Confucian ideal. So basically he's just saying, don't blame or find fault with things that are already in the past. And so he's right here, right now, forgiving Daiwo for this kind of, misunderstanding. And so he's basically saying, it's okay, I forgive you because it's already in the past. That is so cool. So Confucius corrects the error without humiliating Daiwo, and this is how a benevolent and forgiving ruler should behave. And so the whole purpose to studying history is to find the positive sides of it and to remember that and incorporate that into kind of your own conduct. So like we've talked about before, I've said that so many times, but we have talked about it before, and if you remember, the Zhou dynasty was the product of all the good things that happened during the Shang and the Xia dynasties. And that's really good because because the Zhou dynasty learned from the previous two dynasties' mistakes and made sure to not do that ever again. And so you shouldn't really go around and find the faults of all the wrong things that history has done. And yeah, so that will be all today. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask me, and I will be more than happy to answer you. And yeah, have a great rest of your day, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!